if you look at human history, it's easy to tell a pretty horrific story. But between the wars, and perhaps even most eloquently in the midst of the wars, we have written music and we have written poetry. We have our knee on the neck of a planet that likes to breathe, and it is screaming, I cannot breathe, and the CO2 climbs. I cannot breathe, and we point at each other. They're doing it, they're doing it.
When you see where we are today, you see a shift taking place around this time period. What's coming cannot barely be imagined. It is of a different dimension to what we know now.
We need to stop grieving what has been let go of, and we need to start being really curious about what's coming.
So you need to find that wild, abandoned nature inside yourself, that creative being. In the times ahead, that's all we have.
Life is the brightest thing in the universe. Who are you? You're the brightest thing in the galaxy. You're the brightest thing in the universe, maybe. You're here to light up the cosmos.
Welcome to the Deja Blu podcast.
Considering also that the information ecology that we exist within is also radically going to change with AI, we're adding another factor of information transfer that's going to complicate things even further. And so how do we dance? Where is that line? Does that make sense?
I'll jump in, I guess. I think I could tie this back to that 2-year-old toddler or 1-year-old trying to learn how to walk, whatnot. When we look around at humanity and then lose hope for the condition of our fellow humans or our disconnect from them or all of this, it's like a bunch of 3-year-olds in preschool together being so disappointed in one another. You know, like they get home and they're crying. They're like, somebody took my toy and blah, blah, blah. And the parents just like, yeah, a bunch of 3-year-olds, like expectations are low. And so we need to remember when we look around at the human condition, none of us have made the phase shift here, right? We're working towards it. We can feel it coming, but we haven't shifted, and we have to have an enormous amount of grace for one another for the lack of completion of that transformation event to occur. And the experience that I've had this past year in Africa has really radically changed my whole state of being around witnessing true wildlife. You know, the version of wildlife we get in the U.S. is anything but. And you go to Europe, it's even worse, right? Europe hunted all of its species into extinction basically 3,000, 4,000 years ago. And so you don't have wildlife in Europe. You go to Africa and you are in the origin story of humanity. First of all, you're in the origin story of all life came out of that single Rift Valley energy. And so there is one birth canal for all biodiversity on the planet, which I find very, very interesting. And so the more time I'm in Africa, I'm like, my God, this is it. This is a planet expressing a vaginal canal and ultimately a uterus where it creates biodiversity. This is the iterative journey begins here. And in that little weird zone between South Africa and Botswana and Zimbabwe down there, before you even get up to Ethiopia and the Rift Valley, you have like 2/3 of the planet's genetics expressed in a single zone between the Kruger Canyons to National Park there. And so this one space contains 2/3 of the genes of the planet. And you're just like, how is this possible that it's there? And you see whole mountainsides exploding with like peace lilies. And you forget like those aren't ornamentals that we took all over the world and planted out in a yard to look nice. Entire mountains are expressing peace lily out there. And so we have to be in awe of nature's capacity. But what happened to me there is I got witnessed by nature, by raw wild life for the first time in my life. And this was a huge reversal of the story that I told you earlier, because I told you had 5 senses and you stare at sunsets like nobody else. But there are keystone species that are capable of observing your wildness that you don't even know exists. You only know the human 5 senses version of yourself. And at midnight, first night in Africa, I came face to face with these 2 white lions. White lions are the largest lions in nature. They're about 550-pound males, about 30% larger than a yellow lion. Massive 2 white lions meet me feet away from me in the full moon, and I'm frozen just by the biologic phenomena of being around this much energy. I cannot move a muscle for the near hour that this moment existed. And so that time was the first time I had been witnessed. because I have so many defense mechanisms to make sure other humans don't see me. I have an egoic shield that is trained over a 200,000 year process to be superstar and making you not see me. I've developed a way to shine that shield such that when you look at me, you think you're seeing me, all you're seeing is your own reflection. And so we walk around thinking we see beautiful humans. And when wild lions look you in the eye and remind you of who you are, you realize you missed the entire story of your life, because you are a wild freaking creature and you didn't come here to be contained. You didn't come here to be contained by five senses or anybody else's laws or some sort of marriage construct. You are a freaking wild beast. And you are beautiful and you are frightening in your capacity, because the lion remembers you. And it sits there and says, hell yeah, you are back. And you showed up right now at the tipping point of all things. I'm freaking glad you came. Let's party. Let's get this thing on. Let's amp this thing up. You are a wild creature. And I was forever changed by that night, because it turns out in physics, there's something called the observer effect. That when you actually see an atom, it changes its entire spin. Its direction immediately goes 180 degrees the other direction. That lion saw me and I changed direction completely. You are a wild creature that has been tamed in the mind to believe you are something less than you are. And the minute you are seen, you will change direction and you will overcome the darkness and you will vomit the final vomit and you will move into your light. And that will happen when you allow yourself to be seen. And I guarantee you that will not be a human that you will let see you first. It's going to have to be a wild creature. So go find some wild and let yourself be seen. Trees are very good at this. Let the trees see you. Just let the tree see you. And sit there and be seen. Lay under that tree and let yourself be seen. Get naked under that tree and just be like, this is it. This is all I got. And then the tree will start to remember you. And when you see how wild you are, when you see how beautiful you really are, you will just be so humored that you believe that 2 years old was your maturation point. You're ready to graduate to kindergarten very soon, very soon.
We have time for about one more question, unfortunately, because it's quite late. Sorel, would you like to come up and ask a question?
I waringly put my hand up, not knowing if I was actually meant to share it, and the fact that you chose me. It's not really a question. However, I was just in the presence of a lot of very powerful people over the last week or so. Founder of Calm, billionaire company, $2 billion company. So many very influential individuals. And they spoke so much about AI, and I'm glad it was already mentioned a little bit. And one thing that was shared was really powerful for me to hear. And essentially, the people that were speaking of AI and the power that's coming through now in this realm is going to mean that there's a lot of us being replaced, lots of intellectual ways of being as a human is going to be shifting. And one person spoke actually about the atrophy of the brain because it won't be needed as much anymore. And what is going to be left over and what is going to be the strength of humans that remain is the visionary creatives, the ones that are able to tap into the soul and the gut and bring something forth. And those are the surviving humans. So that's the only thing I thought was really relevant to this conversation, speaking about the gut and less in the mind. So if there's any comment on it, otherwise I just wanted to share that piece because I think it's really important conversation in the world right now too.
Thank you,
Thank you. I'd just like to say some closing things inspired by that and the previous question, which I heard another question inside that question, which is for me, it was like, what should we do? Which is a really great question. And I think you answered that by being wild. Go and find our wildness. But also part of that wildness is our creativity. And what AI may do is it may solve some problems, and it may also create more problems. And it may take away a lot of that creative process. And the thing about the creative act is it's not the result. See, AI can come out with a result just like that, and people will no doubt make lots of money out of that, and lots of great creative things. But it's the process of creation that is the key, not the product. So that's part of the answer of what do? We keep creating. Mm-hmm. And part of that creating is also relating. I had this wonderful conversation with this Aboriginal man, Tyson Yunkaporta, wrote a wonderful book called Sand Talk. Mm-hmm. And he's a wild man. You want to meet a wild man? I mean, the only reason he gave me a kind of time of day is because I'm a wood carver, and I wrote to him and I said, I love you. I wrote to him, I said, I love your book, and wasn't expecting to get an answer, but every now and again, if I read a book and I love the author, I write to him. Anyway, I said, I love that you created an artifact for every chapter before you wrote it, and by the way, what kind of wood did you use for that bent branch boomerang? And anyway, he said, well, I'm going to give you the time of day because there's a code among wood carvers. And anyway, so I had this lovely interview with him that I was going to publish. I just couldn't. It was too full of swearing and kind of cursing and this wild man. And anyway, at one point we were talking about, I said, your unbroken lineage of 40,000 years and your indigenous people, incredible. How is it that you managed to maintain that lineage? And he said relationships. Because they're not writing thing down, right? So there's no written evidence. It's all maintained through relationships. Everything. So that's how you maintain a lineage. That's how you maintain, and that's what we're going to have to do in the time ahead. Build, not bunkers, relationships. Go on building relationships. Go on creating. If we can help others while we're doing that, even better. If we can help people in struggle and in suffering, even better. But that's the key. It's another question that people have often. I've heard people often ask wise people, or great teachers. And the question is like, why do all this meditation when there's so many problems in the world? Why are you doing all this, teaching all this stuff? And the answer I've heard is always the same, and I kind of agree with it. Is my interpretation of it is that action, unless it's coming from ecstasy, is not correct action. So you need to find that wild, abandoned nature inside yourself, that creative being that wants to be of service, but isn't so much of a kind of, what was it you called it last night? It wasn't an activist. It was a kind of, it wasn't a reactivist, you said. Yeah, it was a true activist, as opposed to a reactivist. Because the action can't come from fear or frustration or anger. It has to come from passion and ecstasy. Then it's the right action. So you have to continue in your awakening process, because otherwise you can't activate this gut, and you won't be able to follow your gut. And that's all we have, following our gut. In the times ahead, that's all we have. And we have these beings coming in. We have this like massive storm coming. In Gene Keys, we call it the ring of the whirlwind. And I had this image of like this sitting on a porch looking at the sunset. Isn't that beautiful? And then a massive tornado behind. And you're just looking here and you don't know this thing's coming. And that's the case of this planet right now. This thing's coming. And everyone's looking the other way. Most people. So we have to kind of really meet it. And right now I'm looking at these like kids coming in and babies coming in and being born. I'm thinking like, why would you choose to be born now? And I'm thinking like, these must be big wave surfers, you know, like that's the only explanation I've got of a child incarnating now, because, you know, they must be specialized souls that have these special boards that, and their skill is for those massive tsunamis, either that or they're mad. So, you know, really that's what we're doing here. And I think all of this community and these communities around the world are networking to kind of create the preparation ground for this chaos that's coming, I think. And creativity and following our gut is really not, there's not much more that we need to know than that. So the creative act is the key. And I hope we can pass that on. I mean, I look at my children and they're already using AI, and, you know, my son is using it to help him with his exams, and everyone's doing it. You know, the teachers haven't cottoned on yet. I mean, it's hilarious. They just don't realize that all these kids are just having their things written for them. And it's hilarious. And it just makes me laugh. And so that's what we can't lose, the creative process itself. And because that, you know, that's where the juice is. That's where our wildness is. That's what keeps the microbiome going, that creative, you know, extending ourselves, stretching ourselves into new areas, new places, new inside ourselves. You know, that's,
I think I can
that's our ecstasy.
I think I can set you up for an awesome closure on this one, because I think this is such an important thing of what are we supposed to do then? Like if it's big wave surfing time, what are we going to do? And ultimately, I think the answer is we're doing it right now. We came together today, sight unseen, not really sure what was going to emerge, and we decided to spend time together. And what is emerging here is a new awareness of the power of humanity when it steps into its wild nature and when it renaturalizes to its full potentials to create something that's within us that's never been expressed before. But you can, when I'm listening to you, Richard, right there, I just get goosebumps of how terrifying that is, and how anything that we express from a state any other than ecstatic is wrong. To then live into a situation where we're only expressing from an ecstatic state is so disruptive and so dangerous. And there's no social construct or approval or acceptance of that state of being. And so I think the challenge we have is, can we follow Blue into this state of play and prayer that's so ecstatic that we start to accept each other to do it, you know? And so this is really it is a state of play that we're going to have to start to allow. And we're doing it. You see new constructs of relationships, new constructs of expression of sensuality and sexuality happening. My kids' generation now in their 20s are all expressing something I could have never imagined when I was their age. And my grandson, who's in his early teens, is expressing something that my kids could have never imagined. And so the speed at which each new iteration, they're not even waiting a full generation to express something more wild, more free, more unconstrained than the rest. But the more unconstrained they are right now, the more they reject all the things, the more prone they are to depression and major depression and suicidality and terror, because there is nothing telling them that it's okay to live that free. And so I think as a community, we're going to have to start to create constructs and lexicons and gatherings that just say, all right, let's get ecstatic. Let's get into this space together and just create a judgment-free zone that begins at a deep state of reverence to each other person. So before you express ecstasy, can you come into a moment of just extreme awareness of how precious each entity is around us? And then we will more safely move into an ecstatic state. we risk harming one another greatly in our ecstasy if we do not begin at reverence. And so we'll begin there, and then we will ask forgiveness for the past and begin an ecstatic journey together that holds each other in that state of space, that state of awareness that you will complete yourself. I can't complete you. There's nothing I can show up in your life to be a partner or a person or a mentor or guru. There's nothing I can do to perfect the 4-dimensional genome that you're about to express from the light energy that you're going to organize in your ecstatic state. That's going to be a self journey, but it can only be done if you are seen and allowed to be seen. And that's what the Course in Miracles ultimately concludes, is the moment that two human beings complete the masculine and feminine within themselves, they will be able to see each other for the first time. The reason we have the egoic shield up is because we believe ourselves to be incomplete and therefore vulnerable, and therefore we need a protection. And so we think of ourselves as masculine or feminine or some damaged version of it. When we complete that, we can set down the shield and the lion will see the lioness. And it says that when two human beings actually see each other, there will be such a radical experience of beauty that the vibration of love will transmute the entire species. Two people have to see each other and it's done. And so what do we need to do? We need to create vessels by which we need to create environments, events, spaces in which we can all come into a safe, ecstatic state to complete ourselves, such that we could let down the shield and see one another, and then we will complete the journey and we'll be the new thing.
You have to take this away and just kind of, because you're the ecstatic.
Yeah, that's right.
No pressure then, right at the end. Click. I just don't think you can ever, ever, ever replace the human heart. No AI will ever replace the way that we love. And this is what we came here to remember. This entire life is designed for us to remember our oneness and our love. And I have witnessed miracles happen in my own personal reality. I can only speak off of the lens in which I've experienced, is loving people creates miracles. And this whole experience is a byproduct of many, many micro moments made with love. And I have witnessed standing in front of somebody and just seeing them clearly and what that does. It doesn't even need to say anything anymore, but it's about the capacity that we can love without the judgment of our own our personal emotions, and to accept everything that presents itself is our capacity in which we can accept whoever it is that's standing right in front of us. And so the willingness to die well, and what I mean by that is the common theme that I have witnessed within others that are truly so inspiring to me, is that they've learned before they actually physically die to die well. And as Richard has shared and has lasted so deeply within the core of my being, is that enlightenment is a series of softenings. So that we do not find the gift in why the divine nature has presented whatever it is right in front of us, whatever it's emotion, situation, person, or relationship. We will only find the gift when we soften deeper into it. And that sentence or that perspective has allowed the softening in the most challenging moments that has presented such an incredible gift, that then that gift by nature just has to be shared. And that's all of our responsibility, our ability to respond to what is here right now and what is to come that we have really no idea because we've never seen before. But we remember in the core of our beings. And one of my teachers shared with me is that I don't know what the truth is, but I know what love feels like. And I follow that every single day. And so this is our ability to respond, our responsibility. Is every single day, in every single micro moment, asking myself, what would love do? Honoring everything that's present, softening deeper into it, and waiting for the miracle to unfold. But the beautiful thing about all of it, that it's actually here already. It's actually already here. The answer is hidden in plain sight. And it's about cleaning off our lenses enough to be able to receive what is already here as gifted to us, which is the greatest thing we could ever experience, which is life. Here, right now, look around us. This is our life. And it's here to be experienced and shared.
You just mentioned something really important, which is we compressed 25,000 years into 100 years. And what we've been witnessing in human biology in our laboratory, as well as in farm fields around the world in our farmers' footprint regenerative processes, we can compress 100 years into 1 second in regards to healing. We can heal faster than you can possibly imagine. And the reason why we have climate models that predict all of this stuff is because we have chemists and biochemists and all of this working on this. And as a chemistry problem, we will be 135 degrees, no question. In fact, that's the average surface temperature of an average farm in the Midwest today is 135 degrees on the soil temperature in a Midwest farm under conventional farming practices. It's already that hot. And so that's a chemistry problem. The chemistry of there's too much CO2 in the atmosphere, all this true. All of it's true. It's going to be horrible. We're going to bake the whole thing. It's going to be a disaster if we stay in chemistry. But if we do biology, we can transform the entire equation. And I would argue that the vast majority of climate change algorithms aren't counting the power of biology because they're not witnessing the power of biology in their metrics because biology is disappearing at a rate that's so fast. And so there's a belief that it's the CO2 that's causing the warming when in fact it's the extinction of biology that's accelerating that, and CO2 is only the symptom. And so CO2 is not the cause of climate change in my biologic perspective because CO2 accumulating in the atmosphere is exactly what happens to a human being when they go into emphysema. Their CO2 just starts climbing in the bloodstream and they start to fail as biology and they start to die, not because there's CO2 in their bloodstream, but because they can't breathe because the lung is disappearing. CO2 in the atmosphere is the symptom of stopping breathing. We have our knee on the neck of a planet that likes to breathe. And it is screaming, I cannot breathe. I cannot breathe. I cannot breathe. I cannot breathe. And the CO2 climbs. I cannot breathe. I cannot breathe. And we point at each other. They're doing it. They're doing it. We're doomed. All we have to do is take our knee off the neck of the planet, and it will take a massive breath. And we are poised right now to take that breath because we are at a 7,000-year natus of North Africa. Every 7,000 years, North Africa goes green. And it's the biggest grassland in the world. And when it goes green, Saudi Arabia goes green. And when it goes green, Siberia goes green. And when it goes green, northern China goes green. 1/3 of the planet is about to go green if we take the knee off the neck of the planet. And so Project Biome is the nonprofit we've been working on for 5 years. And we started in Africa this last year with the understanding that if we take the knee off the neck, which is chemical farming on the southern border of the Sahara Desert, that desert will start to regreen. And it will do that not on its own. It will do that because of the elephants. Over the last 10 years, 200,000 elephants have overpopulated Botswana in southern Africa. 200,000 elephants have outbreeded their food system, which elephants never do. Elephants have no predator. They always grow to the right appropriate population for their food supply and their water supply. 200,000 excess elephants inexplicably have occurred over the last 10 years. And for that, they have destroyed the forests of Botswana, annihilated all of it, because elephants are the water keepers of this planet. And when the elephants are allowed to march, they will regreen Africa. And so Project Biome is working on the private and public and governmental agreements and arrangements over the next few years to allow those elephants to walk. And when they start walking, we will see a green Africa occur because nature knows that she wants to take a breath and nature is preparing for that breath. We are in the way at the moment and we can just simply not be in the way, and we can walk those corridors with those elephants to make sure there's no poaching, to make sure they are safe, and we will create an army of humans that will celebrate the walk of the elephants, and North Africa will green and the planet will not be 135 degrees because we took a breath.
Beautiful ending.
Now I'm taking a breath. Incredible. Can we just give it up for Richard and Zach and
Blue.
Carla and Deborah and everybody that has contributed to this conversation? Thank you so much. So as we close out, this is
Yeah, no, I just want
like
to. I did. You're not getting away with that. I just want to give Blue, like, I want us to all give her a round of applause and or a shriek or a woo or a, you know. Awesome, Blue. Thank you so much. You know, on behalf of all of us for making this happen and just for being such an incredible being. You know, I think you're one of those elephants. And we're going to follow you.
Thank you. Alrighty, so I'm just going to close it out with a final prayer. Okay, so just closing our eyes and coming to a comfortable position is an opportunity to integrate what it is that we have received today. Let's allow a deep breath in through our nose, hold it on the inhale. And all pieces that wish to be integrated, not needing to be remembered by the mind, but integrated by the body on a somatic level of all 75 trillion cells to integrate this information. And with the exhale, that integration is going to begin in 3, 2, 1, sighing it out. Just allowing ourselves to close out on the note of gratitude. The gratitude for this incredible quantum computer that we call a body. That our souls have just chose so courageously to incarnate into. On a planet that is so diverse with so much life. That there is miracles laced in the mundane if we're so present to receive it. That recognizing when we pass from these physical bodies, the one thing we'll be remembered for is how we made people feel. So may we continue to transform and transmute this desire to consume. And allowing ourselves to receive the gift that is already hidden in plain sight right now. Here in the memory of our gut, our hearts, our bodies, and our connections. These gifts that we are given throughout this human experience. So may every single day we count our blessings and our gratitude for every single gift we have in our lives, recognizing gratitude is just calling in more things to be grateful for. And recognizing that giving and receiving is the same energy. And when we truly understand that, we would not go another day without giving. And may we remember that the earth is our body. The water is our blood. The air is our breath, and the fire is our spirit. And so we remember together as one global family for the greatest good of all beings, of all sentient life. And so it is. No.